Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supernatural. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Literally picking up right where last week's episode left off. Obviously, Jack is still the bomb he is, and obviously, it's that panic situation. What do we do? There has to be a way to stop it. Lo and behold, who shows up? But Billy, and Billy's like, well, you done it. You ruined everything. It's like, what are you talking about? This is your plan. You made it seem like we were doing this because, trying to get rid of Chuck and everything. It's like, no, you were getting rid of Chuck for your own reasons. You wanted to take control of everything. Like, when it was all said and done, you were going to get rid of all of us. Like, everyone that's ever died, everyone that's ever gotten a second chance, people from a different world, your quote-unquote order. But it's like, do something about Chuck, something about Jack, and it's like, she's like, I can't. Like, once it started, it can't be stopped. But she's like, there is something else I can do. So she teleports Jack to the empty, and he explodes. Obviously, the empty isn't as powerful as Chuck or Amara, but it's still like higher up on that list of powerful beings, and it was able to contain Jack. It would, because basically the way she kind of explains it is that basically, obviously, the whole thing inside of Jack is a chain reaction, and I guess I think of it as like when he explodes, basically the empty took everything from his very being to his atoms and contracted it all back in. Or maybe it's just like he exploded and then kind of retracted just because of the empty just being what it is, was able to kind of contain it. And so obviously Jack's back and everything, but he's like, you can tell something is definitely off the way he's looking at himself. I guess it's just kind of like wait, I'm alive again. And obviously the empty's super pissed. It's like, now it's even louder because I guess because he exploded in there, it woke everyone up, I guess, in a sense. I think that's kind of what that is. And obviously the empty's super pissed. Then Billy brings Jack back because it's like, all right, I'll bring Jack if you give me the book. And it's like, you kind of don't really have, it's like, yeah, this is my plan. You really have no choice in the matter. So it's like, all right, give Billy the book. She brings Jack back after she looks at the book, and it's like, interesting, because God's ending has changed. And it's interesting because at the end of the day, Billy still is the only one who knows how Chuck's story plays out. Because even Chuck being able to manipulate causality or just the world and everything else, it's like, that's still the one thing you can't change is your ending. Because even he can't read his own book, So that's always interesting. I guess that's in its own way. I guess that's meant to be the checks and balances, because it's like, if you know your ending, you could potentially, knowing your ending could change it. Or maybe it's that thing of like, even knowing your ending, it's inevitable, it will always happen. It makes you wonder about that type of situation. But the fact is that even as omnipotent as, Chuck is, even he doesn't know how his story is going to end. He doesn't even know how it's changed now, how the ending's changed, what it was before to what it is now. It's just a lot of, interesting things, in that regard I find fascinating. Like I said, I think it's meant to be kind of like a checks and balances of just making sure that because knowing would make you too powerful, like, knowledge is power and everything, right? But, nevertheless, it seems like Billy's like, okay, oh no, I brought Jack back, but I still need him. And I'm wondering, like, I guess it was for whatever she read in that book, she needed Jack, but, Dean grabs the scythe and slices at her, misses, but it's still interesting because it was like, oh, he's about to reap another death. It's like interesting because let's not forget, it was him that, he's the one that killed the previous death, which is, well, to be fair, you can't kill death, as Billy is an example of. All you have to do is wait for the next. Well, the empty killed a couple Reapers, so Billy dying, one of them will eventually become death, so I'm assuming one of those victims, whichever one died afterwards, was the first Reaper to die after, from the empty, would most likely end up being the one who ends up becoming death next. But it's like, so, but Jack's back and everything, so it's like, now they're trying to figure, well, what do we do now? Because now they have three powerful beings pissed at him. It's like, oh, we got Chuck pissed at us, who's now combined with Amara, so he's even more powerful than before. We've got the empty pissed at us, and we've also got death pissed at us. When we make enemies, we make enemies. But it's a situation of Dean trying to, after everything, he's like, yeah, like, I pulled a gun on you. And Sam's like, he's like, no, it's not. Like, he's like, I was so close to getting, like, Chuck, I could taste the blood. And he's like, it's like, I wanted him dead and I didn't care what happened. I just needed him gone. And he got consumed by that rage. And, but now it's a situation, what do we do now? What do we find out? But then, like, we meet up with Charlie, and Charlie's happy, and she has someone, Stevie, someone new in her life, the whole eggs thing. But then all of a sudden she disappears, and it's like, what? And then she calls Sam and Dean, and they probably have to fill her in about, like, everything that's going down, because their immediate assumption is like, oh, this has to be death. It's like she's trying to send everyone back. So it's like, what happened to Stevie? So when it's all said and done, though, like, at the same time, there's a conversation between Cass and Jack, and I thought it was so interesting, because obviously for Jack, it's like, I was going to die. I was ready to die. I wanted to die, because, if for Sam, for Dean, for you, for the entire world, I wanted to. But now it's that thing of, like, what does he do now? Because they even said themselves, they're like, because of that, he became going nuclear, he doesn't have his powers anymore. And it's like his mission, success or failure, which obviously he didn't complete the mission, but it's like, what do I do now? Like, that was my one purpose. That was like one shot, and it's like, it's gone. And it's like, it's like, it's kind of like losing your purpose, because for him, that was his road to absolution. And obviously for, Cass, it's kind of like neither, like, Sam nor Dean can be that for you. But the fact of the matter is, obviously, it's reminding Jack, obviously, that, they care for him and that he still has a place here, because it's like, we don't keep you around because you're useful to us. You matter to us. We care about you, And so now with this news, it's like, wait, with all these people disappear, it's like, wait, everyone that died, it's like, this is Billy working down a checklist. So Sam gets worried. He tries to contact Eileen. He's able to get in contact with her, but then, like, she stops texting him, and, you can tell, like, his stomach sinks, and they find, Eileen's phone and stuff, and it's like, she was taken, but Sam's like, I can't fall apart right now. There's literally too much going on right now. So, at least Dean's suggesting we'll kill Billy, because if we kill Billy, we can potentially stop this. The conversation isn't even, can we reverse it? The conversation is, can we stop it? And so once we, it's like, Dean's like, we got Billy's cipher. We're going to reap her. And so, let's go Reaper, and he ends up taking Castiel with him. Obviously, Sam was like, no, let's not do it. But it's like, you meet up with Bobby, you get everybody together, everyone, like, from Apocalypse, like, get as many people together who aren't supposed to be here and try to protect them. Obviously, like, that involves Sam, like, contacting Donna, which I'm so excited, so happy to see Donna again. I'm like, Donna! And so, gathering everyone up, it's like, and I even like that thing where Sam was like getting Jack to drive, because he doesn't say it, but I think it was meant to be, it was to give Jack something to do, because just Jack was so kind of lost, and it's like, give him something to focus on, give him something to do. And so, luckily, everyone's there, Bobby's there, Donna's there, obviously not the most ideal circumstances of a reunion and everything, but when it's all said and done, it's like, Sam and Jack and everyone helped set up, like, every spell they know. It's like, will these work? I don't know. There's a spell from Rowena that's going to boost the power of every ward, but other than that, it's like, it might work. We don't know for sure, And so there was also this interesting moment where it's like, oh yeah, there was, like, some plant life coming in. It's like, oh yeah, we might as well, like, fill in that crack, and you never want to be too careful. And Jack's like, okay. And he goes to touch the plant and it dies, and you're like, whoa. Because what did Billy say? He's still, like, everything inside of Jack was a chain reaction, and it's still going on. Even though he's not exploding anymore, the chain reaction is still going on. So whatever it was is still there. So I'm wondering, because obviously it's supposed to turn him into basically a celestial black hole, but it's like, maybe he is a black hole for everything, as in life itself, not just being like, oh, I'm forever going to be this celestial black hole, but also, like, he sucks up life. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with what's happened to him, because I don't think the Empty did this to him. I think it's just like him, which is interesting, because obviously they're being hunted by death, and if in some shape or form he's kind of like death now, or I don't know what. Like, he might actually still be the key to killing Chuck, because whatever's going on with him might still, I mean, granted, Chuck is more powerful, so it's still there's no like exploding bomb type of situation anymore. I don't know. It gets racing through your mind, like, what's going to happen? You know, what does that mean? Like, is there still a timer on, Jack's life? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But obviously, Dean and Castiel are, still going after Billy, and during the confrontation, we find out, well, for one, Billy's still dying, and I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. It's like, oh, that nick from the scythe, oh, it's enough to kill me. It's not killing me as fast, but it's still slowly killing me. I had a death sentence the moment you sliced me, and it's like, that's interesting. Also, I'm not the one doing this. It's Chuck. I was like, ooh, because I didn't know who. I was like, because it didn't look like the Empty, because we've seen how the Empty operates, but it's like, it makes sense because that's Chuck's good old thing of like, snapping people out of the way. Like, he literally, and that's actually kind of the best comparison, because the moment people were disappearing, I was like, oh, did he just like, he's snap. I mean, to be fair, that's kind of his thing, like, snapping anyway. But it's like, oh, he's literally Thanosing this bitch. Like, he's snapping everyone out of existence. I mean, he doesn't even necessarily need to snap. He can just wave people out of existence. But it's like, oh, we going full Thanos in this. Even further than Thanos, actually, making Chuck even worse than Thanos. Thanos is like, not justifying it, but it's like, I'll take out half the universe. I mean, it also depends on what continuity you go with. Because it's like, oh, I'm going to take out half the universe so I can impress Death. Or I can take out half the universe because this way I can make sure every, world keeps going, because, I'm the hero trying to save the universe. So like I said, depending on what continuity you want to go with, why Thanos did the whole snap thing, the whole gauntlet situation. Regardless, tangents and all that. But, now we know it's Chuck. Nothing's going to protect him, those wards or anything. Don't do anything. And obviously, one by one, everyone in that bunker starts disappearing. And, obviously, it ends up being Charlie, it ends up being Bobby, and then Donna. Because the whole conversation was like, it's like, oh, Garth and, and everything. And then it's like, I told Jody, and her and the girls are on, watch. And it's like, no, like, it's okay. Like, they never were in a situation where they died and got resurrected, or they're not from a different world. So you and everyone else should be fine. This is right there. It's like, oh, God's not going out. He made a point to go after the people they cared about most first. Like, first, the whole point was to hit the epicenter was the Winchesters, and then ripple out. It's kind of the whole point. Start with the center, like, it's like, oh, you guys used to be my favorite, now I hate you, and ends up taking everyone from them in that instance. So, and even in conversation later on, Jack's like, is it just them, or was it, because at first you're like, did everyone else you worried about, like Jody and Garth, like everyone you've ever known, every associate, every friend you've ever had is gone as well? It's kind of how you kind of look at that situation, but it doesn't stop there. Once again, he went further than Thanos. It looks like he's wiped out every human being. So this is next level apocalypse. Like, obviously it's been apocalypse after apocalypse after apocalypse. There's been quite a few over the course of the show, but the fact of the matter is, this seems to be the worst of all, because it seems like everyone's going. Makes you wonder, are the angels going? What about the demons in hell? Like, is Rowena able to still, are we going to, please tell me we get to see Rowena one more time, because we're down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. I want to know. I want to see, like, some last minute, like, return faces is kind of what I want. I mean, granted, we got Rowena, one more time this season, so I'm happy about that. But I'm curious, like, is the situation in hell and heaven, once again, there's not that many angels left. So now that he's, like, clearing the board on Earth, like, is he clearing the board in heaven and hell? I'm assuming they got to go next, too, because he's starting over with them, too. I don't know. Like, he's never really talked about how that heaven and hell situation is going to work out. I don't know. But on the Dean and Cass side, obviously, it's like, for Billy, it's like, oh, before I die, I get the joy of what I want to watch you die. It's like, and she has always had a personal vendetta against Dean, because Dean's always been the one that's just kind of like the biggest rule, like everything around him has always kind of been a rule break. I mean, I feel like the first instance of that would be like probably when he, because he's always kind of broken the rules. I mean, he's always been kind of an exception to the rules and everything, because it's like, well, he made that deal to resurrect Sam when Home Dude, Aldous Hodge's character ended up killing him like back in the first half of season 2's finale. Then also there's the whole you getting pulled out of hell, because obviously it was all about you being Michael's vessel and everything. So it's just, obviously it's been one thing after another since then, but I'm sure that was like the catalyst that broke the metaphorical camel's back, I guess. But it's just interesting, like Billy just got such a vendetta against Dean himself, because it's like you're just the biggest, the Winchesters in general, but it's just like Dean in particular. And obviously it's like they're kind of backed into a corner, and Dean's blaming himself. He's like, we fell into a trap again. He's like, I was so pissed at Chuck. Obviously, I wanted him gone. That led to all of this, and this was all playing into Billy's hand. Now I played into Chuck's hand again, because the fact of the matter is, when it's all said and done, because that's also the thing too. Billy makes all this point, but it's like, man, Chuck saw it coming. Even you were manipulating and setting this in motion, but it's like, would it have actually even worked, considering the fact that Chuck's the one that nudged you in this direction? He probably nudged you towards something he knew wouldn't necessarily work. I guess maybe the whole point was to give them like a false sense of hope, or obviously it was meant to all lead to that tragedy that didn't play out the way he wanted it to last episode. But regardless, Dean's blaming himself because he's like, again, I let my anger get the best of me, and now like because I couldn't get at Chuck, I needed something to kill. He's like, because that's kind of what I'm good at, I just let my anger and my need to kill something, it's like, I can't do anything else, but I can kill Billy, and just because of that, now we're in this trap situation. Billy's going to kill both of us. He's going to kill you, Cass, and she's going to kill me. And, Cass thinks to himself, there is one more way, and it's like there is something else powerful enough to stop Billy, and it's the empty. The empty can only come to Earth if it's summoned, but he's like, I made that deal with the empty. I'm like, okay, so here we go, because that's something that's been in the back burner. Like, when is the empty going to get him? Like, when's going to be the happiest? But because you think moments would come up that you're like, oh, maybe this is it, but it never came, and you're like, all right, So he talks about the deal he made, and he's like, I could never really comprehend what that would be, Because he's like, what I really want could never be, so that's why he's like, I never thought it would happen, but he's like, happiness is kind of what you decide. Because for him, it's living it. It's not just kind of like, I think for him, basically he was trying to say, like, it's not just a moment, it's kind of like, it's not something you like strive for, it's something you live, because for him it's like he is happiest because it's like he loves Sam, he loves Dean, he loves Jack, because you taught me how to care. Like, he's like, because you only see yourself the way other people see you, as like angry and just this killer, but like it's because you had the biggest heart. Like, you care so much. Like, anything you've ever done, the good and the bad, has always been for like others, whether it's for your brother, whether it's for the world in general. And that's the thing, like, Dean has always sacrificed for the people he cares about, and because that's always the thing, like, Sam wears his heart on his sleeve, but Dean always keeps his tucked away. It's not like he doesn't care, but he cared. It's because he always felt like, and as Kat said, you always see yourself as your dad's blunt instrument. Like, you're not supposed to feel, but it's like you do feel, you do care. You just don't ever want to show it, But the fact of the matter is, you showed me how to care. He's like, from the moment I pulled you out of hell to where we are now, I wouldn't care about anything. I wouldn't feel the way I feel about you or Sam or Jack if it wasn't for you. Like, obviously Dean's had the biggest impact on him. So, and obviously that, that's his family. So for Cassio, he's willing to sacrifice himself for them. And it's like, Dean's like, why are you talking like this is goodbye? And it's like, it is. Because once the empty takes him, it's forever. That was their deal. And so he accepts it. The empty comes and takes him. That's what I'm also curious about. Technically, Billy's not dead, is she? She's just in the empty. So death is kind of on. I mean, there's other Reapers, but it's like death has been removed from play. But of the Reaper, I'm sure death is still going to be a thing now. But still, it's just, that's interesting. When that's all, said and done, like, what the implications for this means, but it's just like, once again, like, everyone's been taken. Obviously, Sam is trying to call Dean, but Dean's so broken down by it because he's just like, he's still blaming himself. It's like Cass is going, Cass is, his family, that's his best friend. And it's like, he's going to make sure that I live, to make sure all of us live. Like, that's just the most heart-wrenching thing. Like, who knows? Like I said, we don't know the implications of this. Can they reverse this? Could they ever get Castiel back from the empty? I don't know. It let him go before. No guarantee he'll ever do it again, especially because of their deal. Who knows? And like I said, what the implications of the whole Billy thing is, potentially they're the only humans left on this earth. Maybe, potentially. It means everyone they've ever known, people they don't know. Makes you wonder, what about the monsters? Like I said, every supernatural being, are they still there? Or is it kind of being a micro situation where it's like, oh, this apocalypse level shit because like every creature that's ever exists is there and you're kind of alone in this. We've taken everyone you've ever cared about, everyone you've ever known. Then on top of all of that, once again, heaven hell situation. Really quickly, there's actually something I want to add. I think it's actually ironic at the end of the day. Remember, Dean's whole point last episode was he was willing to sacrifice anything and everyone if it meant giving him his opportunity to take down Chuck. He didn't care. He'd pay any price. Basically, he's like willing to sacrifice anything, Jack, everyone, even though like Sam had told him about like, what Billy's plan was to do to everyone who had died or, from a different world, and he didn't care. And the irony behind it is, at the end of the day, you said that, but the price still got paid because Chuck took everyone away anyway. I mean, granted, it's more than that, but it's still, I find that in a sad, it's a very tragic irony, I think, at the end of the day. And I'm wondering, is that probably rattling off in Dean's brain right now? Because I didn't even think about that till after the episode. I was like, yeah, that's, I don't know. It's just, I think that's probably a whole point to it as well, because it's just kind of more of a, because Dean already blames himself, being like, I'm the one that set this in motion because I was the one that was so gung-ho about taking down Chuck. I didn't care. Like I said, I was willing to sacrifice Jack, and now I revealed at the end, like, oh, I'm willing to sacrifice anyone. Like, whether that was really his real feelings or whether it was just because of everything that he was just everything just swelled up and pushed him forward. Whether there was a little more manipulation on God's part to push him to that point, but still, it's just like, It's like I said, it's just a tragic irony at the end of the day that you still paid the price, and you don't even have a dead Chuck to be like, at least it was for something. It was all kind of for nothing at the end of it all. I mean, granted, once again, we don't even know how this is all going to play out. You'd assume because other people got snapped, we'll just label it as that, as I said, they could pop back, but we don't know like how that whole situation is going to work. Maybe once you've dealt with Chuck, that means, I don't know. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. I mean, like I said, we are down to the wire. This is episode 18. There's only 2 episodes of Supernatural left, which is crazy to think about. But I'm so excited to see where all of this takes us with the penultimate episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.